Hey guys, welcome back to my review of Pena, Dura, the 5th episode of the 5th and final season of Gotham. Now, the end of this episode did mark the halfway mark for this season. Out of all currently airing DC series, Gotham is really the one DC TV series that deserves a lot more seasons. More than Arrow, for example, deserves its 6th and 7th seasons. It's definitely gonna be missed. But Gotham, though, went all out this week when it came to the introduction of Bane, giving us a lot of story to enjoy, a lot of Easter eggs to Bane's comic book origin, making it also one of those epic episodes on Gotham's final season. But in the spirit of not wasting any more time, and without further ado, let's get started. Let's go. Number 1. Enter EDUARDO, the man who will later on this season become Bane. Now, I know there has been this huge controversy over Bane's costume, but to be honest, what's done is done. The costume is already there, the season has been filmed, and there's no way to go back on that one. So I'd really focus on the story and the transformation of EDUARDO over here into Bane, rather than focus on the suit. However though, I'm pretty sure once the suit or costume is introduced on the series, it's going to annoy the hell out of me, like on a weekly basis. But for the time being, let's just look at the positives, all the positives that this season of Gotham has been bringing us since the very beginning. Number 2. In terms of origin, the series so far has not given us an origin story for Bane, but it's definitely going all out, giving us hints and Easter eggs to the origin story of Bane in the comics. So for starters, we've got the familiar name of EDUARDO DORRANCE. In the comics, Bane happens to be son to none other than the soldier-turned-mercenary and terrorist King Snake, whose name comes to be known later on down the road on the pages of the comics, real name that is, as Edmund Durance. But number 3, the title of the episode, Pena, Dura, it refers to the prison that Bane was raised in on the pages of the comics. So what happened over there and on the pages of the comics is that his father, Edmund Durance, managed to escape his imprisonment in Pena, Dura before the birth of his child. Now, Durance, in post his escape, had the corrupt government of Santa Prisca charge all his crimes to his child, who was back then still to be born, and within the prison, Bane came to be given his villainous title by the warden, and over the years, the kid who was born having to carry the weight of a life sentence for crimes that his father did, ended up becoming the most feared inmate within Pena, Dura. But moving on to number 4, enter Angel Vallelunga, Bane's second in command and a character based on a character by the same name in the comics. Now, Vallelunga in the comics happens to be known as Bird, which is very interesting considering his role in the comics started within the confinements of the saying, "A little bird told me." He taught Bane a lot that is needed to be known about the world outside the wards of Pena, Dura, considering Bane has spent his entire life in there. He was as well the one to introduce him to Gotham and Batman, first through tales and stories, and then through physically traveling to the city post their escape from Pena, Dura. Number 5. So Nygma's really torn apart by having murdered all those people at Haven. He does not believe he would do that. He does not want to be this person who does that. I mean, as he does state, I only kill people who hurt me first. Enter Jim and EDUARDO. Jim is inclined to believe him. Booby trap. Nygma makes a run for it. Jim is left to figure out what the riddle here is and what the answer to the riddle might be. Now, I just don't remember the riddle in the comics, a riddle with chess and stuff, but I'm sure there was one. But nonetheless, considering this season is based in part on the comic book arc 0 Year, the entire scene with Jim jumping around the room trying to save EDUARDO, that kind of reminds me of Batman having to solve Nygma's riddles in order to turn off the laser beams and save Gotham on the final issue of 0 Year. But moving on to number 6, Selina in the Sirens Club, drinking as she's being celebrated for this darkness within, the killing of Jeremiah Valeska. Now, this part of the scene, along with Bruce making it there, it all mirrors that scene from Season 4, when it was all the other way round. Bruce Wayne was being the brat over there, drinking after he's fired Alfred, and Selina there was the one trying to stop him from being that person that he was becoming at the time. But number 7 though, the fact that the entire city is now turned against Nygma is as well yet another reference to the Riddler being the most hated man in Gotham during the events of 0 Year, after what he's done to Gotham over there. Number 8, the woman who tortures the shit out of Nygma, Gretel. Now, she's definitely not the Gretel from the comics, but however, she does seem to be a little bit of an Easter egg to the Batgirl villain. Now, Leslie Bonner, aka Gretel in the comics, does not feel physical pain and has the ability to control men. The Gretel presented on this episode has 2 sons who are blind followers from what it seems. You know, the do as we are asked or ordered kind of sons. And she does seem to be, at the very least, very immune to normal human emotional pain. 300 people dead in Haven, she doesn't care for them at all, but only for that dog. Number 9. Selina's I didn't do anything because I wasn't willing to risk my neck for someone else because I didn't care. That's who I was and that's who I am. That very statement in a way brought her character full circle, even though in the comics and on the series as well, Selina is always going to have a soft spot for none other than Bruce Wayne. Number 10, somehow the taking out of Penguin's men was not satisfying at all. It was extremely irritating. This is really one of those things that I love about Gotham, something that I'm gonna miss so much when the series is gone. The way the Rogues Gallery of Jim Gordon and Batman works on the series, it's kind of interesting. I mean, they're villains, but at the end of the day, they do care about Gotham. Some of them do and some of them don't, and when you look at those who don't, you start realizing that those few that do care about Gotham, at the end of the day, when facing the ones that don't care at all, are actually the heroes. But number 11, Barbara willing to actually kill Nygma for payback for what happened in Haven, that's something that's quite selfless in my opinion. It all goes to once again prove where the character of Barbara is hopefully headed by the end of this season. Comic book Barbara Kean, who would later on become Barbara Gordon, wife to Jim Gordon, and mother to yet another Barbara Gordon, Batgirl. But number 12 though, Nygma was never really responsible for Haven, it was rather what EGGSIII did to him. So it was never really Nygma, never really the Riddler, but as I believed over the past few weeks, a completely different personality, with a twist of course. So this other personality we have seen over the past few episodes doing all this mischief in the name of Nygma, that was basically the product of a chip planted in his head, controlling him. One that was surgically implanted over there by none other than EGGSIII. Now if you've been a viewer of my Gotham videos, you probably remember that with this whole ordeal of the Demon Bikers gang, I had this conviction that Nygma was some version of the Ventriloquist from the comics. It did feel very befitting back then from a comic book perspective with his ordeal with the bikers, the same thing with the Ventriloquist during the No Man's Land arc in the comics, and the fact that this is a completely different persona that was doing what he's doing by night. I guess I was kind of right over here because both him and Theresa Walker kind of formed this show's version of the Ventriloquist. Ed over here happens to be Theresa's puppet, like Scarface is to the comic book ventriloquist Arnold Whisker. The fact that Ed has multiple personalities, including this forced puppet personality, it all makes him representative of the other side or the other half of the ventriloquist character Arnold Whisker from the comics, as he happens to have suffered from multiple personality disorder. But number 13, Eduardo and his team having these ulterior motives, this alternate agenda, including, but not limited to, his control of Nygma. It all reminded me of the Green Lantern Corps issue that tied in with the Zero-Year arc. On the pages of this issue, we've got a Marines team landing in Gotham trying to save the people, only for it to turn into some sort of vendetta against Anarchy and his men, instead of actually an attempt to save and protect the people of Gotham. Number 14, Walker, Theresa Walker indeed. Now there's no Theresa Walker in the comics, she's the woman who's supposed to be portrayed on future episodes by Jamie Murray. She has been reported during casting to be Jim Gordon's nemesis over the course of the season. So while we all know that Bane is supposedly going to be this major villain this season, he comes with a baggage of villains. Walker being one of them and could possibly end up being revealed as the biggest of all villains this season, with the possibility of a second reveal at the very end that she's not really who she claims she is, but rather someone right out of the comics. Think Miranda on The Dark Knight Rises, with Miranda turning out in the end to be Talia Al-Ghul, out for revenge on Bruce Wayne for the death of her father. After all, just like Miranda was in a way in control of the situation with Bane on The Dark Knight Rises, Walker is in control of the situation with Bane on Gotham. But finally though, number 15, I did mention on my review of last week's episode that the situation with Jeremiah was very anticlimactic. The way he ended up dead at the hands of Selina Kyle. But the surprise of this episode though was that Jeremiah had it all planned with his own version of Harley Quinn. He knew Selina would come for him, allowed her a first stab to make it all believable, and came out a survivor. But obviously there's a lot more to his plan. What he plans next is a family reunion, and given the hairdo of these two people whose faces were revealed only to Jeremiah by the very end of the episode, I'm assuming over here we're going to be seeing two Jeremiah created doppelgangers for both Thomas and Martha Wayne. But that being said though, I definitely give this episode a 9 out of 10. I think it was one of my favorites this season. A lot's been happening, those Easter eggs, that Dark Knight Rises parallel, which will probably end up in an explosive reveal. the return of Jeremiah and his plan to play the shittiest prank possible on Bruce Wayne. So really, it's such a great episode, creating such great potential for what remains of the season, what remains of the series in general. Now you can let me know if you share my opinion on the episode or if you've got a different one, and let me know if you agree those two over there at the end of the episode are actually two people whose looks have been altered to look more like Thomas and Martha Wayne. You can let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribe, and enable notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my Gotham videos, or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.